That orphan has caused distress in our village. She must be expelled. Come out of your heart, foolish girl. Cheering, open up now. You are one girl without family and no status in this village. You do not make these decisions independently. He must depart immediately. Miriam, a young orphan, was gathering firewood by the river when she heard someone calling for assistance.
Huh?
Everyone else would have disregarded it. Who's there? However, Miriam's heart would not allow her to turn away. Where are you? She aided a stranger. That decision altered her life forever. I recognize this narrative as an original intellectual property of African Folktales by Z. All rights are reserved. An O portion of this story may be copied, reproduced, adapted, translated, or redistributed in any manner. Miriam awoke before the sun. This was not unusual. The sun had the privilege of rising leisurely, stretching golden arms across the sky at its own pace. Miriam had no such privilege. She had firewood to gather, water to collect, and a market to reach before the prime spots were occupied by women with husbands and helpers, and reasons to arrive late. She rose from her mat on the mud floor of her single-room hut, folded her thin blanket with the meticulous care of someone who possessed very little, and thus treated everything with great respect. She splashed cold water on her face from the clay pot by the door. She owned one dress, a faded blue cotton dress her late aunt had sewn for her years ago. She was prepared. You do, my daughter. This was Miriam's existence at 20 years old, and parents, no family, no one awaiting her at the end of the day. Her father had succumbed to fever when she was 5. Her mother followed 2 years later, a sickness that began small and grew significant before anyone comprehended it. Her aunt had taken her in, loved her quietly, and then passed away herself when Miriam was 12. Since then, Miriam had been self-sufficient. Greenwood Village was not an unkind place. It was merely an ordinary place, which sometimes equates to the same thing. Individuals were not intentionally unkind to Miriam. They simply did not make an effort for her. She lingered on the periphery of their lives, occasionally acknowledged, but mostly overlooked. The children sometimes mocked her tattered dress. Mama Rosa, the village's most fervent gossip, would occasionally shake her head in a manner that conveyed everything without uttering a word. Poor child. She had nothing to show for herself, nothing to offer anyone. However, there was old Thomas. Old Thomas was 70 years old, sporting a white beard and eyes that had witnessed enough of life to understand what truly mattered. Every morning, without exception, he sat outside his door and greeted Miriam as she passed by. Good morning, child. Good morning. Good morning, old Thomas. Still standing. Still standing. Still standing. Still standing. That brief exchange, 4 words from each of them, was sometimes the only kindness Miriam experienced throughout an entire day. She cherished it carefully, like water in a cracked cup, ensuring not to spill a single drop. On this particular morning, Miriam paused at the small mound of earth at the village's edge, the site where her mother was laid to rest. She knelt beside it, placing her hand on the ground. Good morning.
Good morning, Mama.
I am still here, still fighting. I know you see me. She lingered for a moment longer. Then she rose, picked up her firewood axe, and made her way toward the river bush. She hummed a gentle tune her mother had taught her, a song about seeds, seasons, and the faithfulness of God. Unbeknownst to her, as she traversed that familiar path for the 10,000th time, today was not an ordinary day. Today, everything was different. She just had not realized it yet. The river bush was dense and verdant, exuding the scent of damp earth and wild herbs. Miriam navigated through it with the grace of someone who had traversed these same paths countless times. Her axe was small yet sharp, and she was well aware of which trees provided the finest firewood. She knew where the roots lay shallow. She was aware of the paths that the river inundated during heavy rainfall and which, music, remained unaffected. She had just started chopping when she heard it.
Huh. A sound.
Help me, please. It was low. Who's there?
Weak.
Almost nothing. She paused, holding her axe steady. Silence enveloped her. Only the river and the beds remained. Probably an animal, she speculated. Hello, is someone there? She returned to her cutting. Then the sound came again. This time it was clear. It was human. Who's there? Miriam carefully set her axe down. She followed the sound deeper into the thicket, pushing through tall grass, stepping over roots, brushing branches with her bare arms. The sound originated from a cluster of large leaves at the base of an ancient tree. She crouched down, moved the leaves aside, and discovered him. A young man lay on his side, slightly curled as if he had crawled there and then been unable to proceed. His shoulder was the most severely injured. A deep wound, poorly bandaged with a strip of his own clothing, soaked with blood that had dried dark and brown. His face was pale against his dark skin, feverish, with dry, cracked lips. One eye opened when she touched his arm. Please, he whispered. Just that one word. Miriam gazed at him for precisely 3 seconds. She observed the wound, the cloth, the hands that looked at her with the particular, music desperation of someone who had exhausted all options. Then she made her choice.
Can you stand?
She inquired. If you assist me, then hold music onto me. It was a challenge. He was tall and she was small. His weight was significant, even in his weakened state. She fashioned her firewood rope into a makeshift support across his back. She allowed him to lean on her shoulder. Throughout their walk, she spoke to him continuously, not posing questions, merely conversing, informing him about the path, cautioning him about the incline here, the slope there, her voice keeping him alert. It took 40 minutes. Upon reaching the village's edge, Miriam sensed him tense. Then she realized why, because Mama Rosa was standing right there. Within 3 minutes, half the village had gathered. Miriam, who is this man?
Who is this man?
Where did you find him? Where did you find him? He looks dangerous. Dangerous. He could be a criminal. Look at his clothes. He's not from here. He's not from here. Mama Rosa stepped forward, arms crossed, the official voice of village judgment. Miriam, you foolish girl.
You have brought trouble to this place.
Who gave you permission to bring? Who gave you permission to bring a stranger here? Miriam looked at the crowd, at their suspicious faces and crossed arms and eager eyes. She said 4 words. He needed my help. My help. Then she walked past all of them and into her hut. Inside, she laid him on her only mat. She boiled water. She fetched the herbs her mother had taught her, the ones good for fever, the ones good for infection, the ones good for blood that had dried in a wound too long. She walked quietly and carefully. She did not ask his name. She did not ask what happened.
She just walked.
At some point, he opened both eyes and looked at her with an expression she had never seen on anyone's face before, like a man seeing something he had no category for. You don't even know who I am, he said. Miriam continued cleaning his wound without looking up. You're someone who needed help, she said simply. That's enough for me. 3 days passed. The fever broke on the second night. By the third morning, he was sitting up. By the third evening, he was eating the small portions of yam and broth that Miriam prepared, which she shared from her own already small rations without comment. Outside the hut, the village had not calmed down. Mama Rosa had organized a formal village meeting, a rare and serious thing reserved for genuine emergencies. The result came to Miriam's door that afternoon. Come out of your hot, foolish girl at the feet. The village has decided the stranger must go by tomorrow morning. Miriam stood at her doorway. He is not in a condition to travel. That is not our issue. It is my issue. He is my guest. You are merely a girl without family or status. You do not make these choices independently. He must depart immediately. I made this choice alone when I discovered him. I will see it through by myself. I will see it through. He will leave when he is well. He will leave when he is well. She closed the door. Inside, the man had overheard everything. When she turned back to face him, he was gazing at her with those eyes once more. That expression still lacked a name for her. Miriam, he said. It was the first time he had uttered her name. She had mentioned it during the nursing, not believing he was conscious enough to hear. I need to tell you something. He reached into the lining of his garment. From a concealed interior seam, he pulled out a small object. He extended it towards her. She accepted it. It was a seal, small and heavy, made of gold. On its face was an embossed crest, an eagle with outstretched wings above a rising sun. Miriam stared at it. Then she reached into the small cloth pouch at her waist and retrieved the only coin she possessed, a single piece she had been saving for 3 weeks. She examined the face of the coin, noting the crest stamped into its surface. The eagle and rising sun were identical. Her gaze shifted from the coin to the seal and back again. "My name is Daniel," he said. "I am the Crown Prince of Aldera." Silence enveloped the small hut entirely. "You are lying," Miriam stated. "I wish I were," he replied. "Tell me everything," she urged. He recounted everything. His father, King Raymond, was gravely ill. His younger brother, Victor, whose ambition had festered over the years into something perilous. They had hired assassins. They ambushed him on the royal road 3 days from the palace. His 3 guards, good men, loyal men, perished so that he could escape. 2 days in the forest, feverish, bleeding, hiding, until he heard a woman humming in the bushes. "If your brother's men find you here, they will harm me. And they may harm anyone who assisted me. How long do you require? 3 additional days. Music, and then I can embark on my journey. After that, you will have 3 more days." That evening, a group of unfamiliar individuals arrived in Greenwood Village. They were inquiring if anyone had seen a young man traveling alone. Mama Rosa was about to speak, but old Thomas stepped in front of her. "No strangers here," he asserted firmly. "Move along." The men departed. An hour later, old Thomas gently knocked on Miriam's door. Upon her opening it, he glanced past her at Daniel, and a wave of emotions crossed the old man's face. Recognition, relief, and 3 decades of loyalty converged in that moment. He reached into his coat and handed a small package to Miriam. It contained plain traveling attire, a small loaf of bread, and a flask of water. "I served his father. Keep him safe. I will monitor the road. You couldn't form those men. The reward would transform your life overnight. My mother always said that a person who trades another's life for comfort leads a life unworthy of living." "Where did you originate from, Miriam?" "The same place you found yourself."
The depths.
"The distinction is that I was music born there. I never had further to descend." He departed before dawn on the 4th day. Old Thomas had organized everything. A secure route, reliable contacts along the way, and the plain clothes that would allow a prince to blend in with ordinary travelers. He turned to face her. She stood in her doorway, wearing her faded blue dress, her hair tied back, her bare feet on the chilly mud floor. Behind her was the tiny hut that had sheltered a crown prince for 4 days. The hut contained no furniture except for a mat, a pot, music, and a blanket. "I will return for you. You owe me nothing." "I am not returning music because I owe you. I am returning because I cannot bear to live in a palace that lacks you. Travel safely, Daniel." "Daniel." He walked into the gray morning. She watched until he vanished from sight. Then she returned inside, sat on her mat, and clutched the one item he had left behind, a small piece of royal fabric deliberately torn from the lining of his garment before he donned old Thomas's clothes. "If anyone questions your narrative," he remarked, placing it into her palm, "present this to them." She meticulously folded it and tucked it into her pouch alongside her coins. Then, Miriam's true suffering commenced. With Daniel absent and the village's ire unresolved, the repercussions came swiftly. The market vendors, following Mama Rosa's example, declined to purchase Miriam's firewood. 1 week passed, then 2, and her meager savings began to diminish. She consumed food once a day, and at times, not at all. Someone inscribed the term troublemaker on her door. She painted over it and remained silent. She was barred from the communal water collection hour, a minor inconvenience that escalated into a significant issue when the river was distant and carrying a burden was exhausting. She was excluded from the harvest gathering, no longer greeted by name as she had been in the past. "Hello, everyone." Only old Thomas remained loyal. "They will comprehend one day," he stated. "I know." "Music," Miriam replied. "You are not upset. You are not upset." She contemplated this sincerely, exhausted, yet not angry. She remarked, "But anger consumes energy. I lack that energy." At night, she prayed. She retrieved the royal cloth, held it, and conversed with her mother's grave from within the hut. "Mama, I am uncertain if I acted correctly. It feels as though I did. However, the right choices do not always feel comfortable afterward. He promised he would return. I am unsure if he meant it. I do not know if he survived the journey. I am unaware of anything, but I am aware of who I am. I understand what I did and the reasons behind it. Music, and I know you would take pride in me." She rested on her empty mat. 3 days away at the royal palace, a crown prince was approaching the gates under the cover of night, poised to reclaim all that had been taken from him. His first inquiry before anything else was this: "Is my father still alive?" The palace was unrecognizable, not in its structure. The walls remained intact. The tower still ascended. The grand gate still shone. Yet, the ambience had shifted, much like the weather changes before a tempest. A sense of heaviness and wrongness permeated the atmosphere. Servants hurried about with their eyes cast down. Guards occupied unfamiliar positions. The laughter that King Raymond had always fostered within his halls had vanished entirely. Undoubtedly, Victor had acted swiftly. In just 3 weeks, he had dismissed 7 loyal ministers' music and replaced them with his own supporters. He had limited access to the king's chamber. "Father requires rest," he stated to anyone who inquired, all the while ensuring that King Raymond remained isolated and uninformed. He had begun to sign documents with a seal that was nearly, but not entirely, the royal seal, training himself to respond to the address of Your Highness when it was directed at him. In a discreet ceremony attended only by his closest allies, he had started to refer to himself as regent. He had yet to utter the word king aloud, reserving it for the appropriate moment. That moment arrived on a Tuesday. Victor stood in the throne room before a gathered assembly of courtiers, ministers, guards, advisors, and palace staff. Gloria, the senior palace maid, who had quietly allied herself with Victor's ascendant power, stood near the front. Victor had meticulously prepared his speech and practiced it thoroughly. He opened his mouth to speak. However, the great doors swung open instead, and Daniel entered. "This is impossible. You are dead." Disappointment washed over him. What ensued was swift and calculated. Daniel's loyal advisors, who had spent 3 weeks discreetly collecting evidence, stepped forward one by one. They presented letters in Victor's handwriting that arranged the assassination, payment records, and the testimonies of 2 captured assassins who, when faced with the choice between loyalty to a failed plot and mercy from a living prince, chose the living prince. Victor's allies crumbled almost instantly. Some wept genuinely, while others recoiled from him as if he had suddenly caught fire. Victor himself attempted to use words first, then resorted to anger, followed by a desperate plea for support. The guards were already present. "You were never strong enough." Victor spat as they took him away. "You were never fit to rule." Daniel gazed at his brother for a prolonged moment. When he finally spoke, his tone was devoid of triumph, filled instead with sorrow. "I could have been your greatest ally, Victor. I would have given you anything you desired. You opted for this path instead. I hope you find peace. I genuinely mean that."
No.
Victor was taken away, still shouting, "I won't go," quietly. The court fell silent. "This is a one-by-one music," then knelt. Daniel did not approach the throne. He first went to his father's chamber. King Raymond appeared smaller than he remembered. The illness had stripped him of weight and color. However, his eyes opened upon Daniel's entrance. In those eyes resided everything: recognition, relief, love, and the unique peace of a parent who had feared the worst and was proven wrong. "My son," King Raymond said, "I'm here, father." Daniel settled beside him and grasped his hand. "I'm here, father. I'm here, father. You're alive. You're alive because of someone extraordinary." He recounted to the king the tale of Miriam, the river bush, the tiny hut, the firewood axe, the village that laughed, and the girl who selflessly gave her last blanket to a stranger without being asked and without expecting anything in return. The king absorbed every word with his eyes closed and a faint smile gracing his lips. When Daniel concluded, the room was enveloped in silence. A girl with nothing gave you everything. Music, the old, the rarest thing. Do not lose her. His grip on his son's hand tightened. That is the rarest thing in the world. Do not lose her. Do not exploit her. Father, I will not. Father. King Raymond passed away peacefully in his sleep 3 days later. He had lived long enough to witness his son return home. That was sufficient. On the morning of the 4th day, Daniel summoned his horses. Where are you headed? His advisor inquired. Greenwood Village, 3 days east. Your Highness, there are matters of state that require attention. The matters of state waited 3 weeks while I was missing. They can wait 3 more days. 3 more days had passed. He mounted his horse. I made a promise. I made a promise. He rode. Miriam was at the river. Just like always, with the same axe, the same path, and the same song her mother had taught her, which she hummed softly under her breath while she worked. It had been 6 weeks since that morning when she witnessed a man vanish music into the great dawn. 6 weeks of silence. 6 weeks of convincing herself that she had made the right choice, no matter what followed. She had nearly, though not entirely, ceased watching the road. She had the horses first. She thought nothing of it. Occasionally, travelers would pass by. She continued her cutting. Then she heard the village. Greenwood Village did not produce that sound for ordinary travelers. That sound, a collective gasp followed by shouting, and what could only be described as collective confusion, was unfamiliar. Miriam lowered her axe and turned towards the village. A royal procession filled the main path from one edge to the other. Horses, music, guards in palace uniforms, and a banner she recognized from the coin in her pocket. And at the forefront, on the lead horse, adorned in the full regalia of the crown, was a man she had last seen dressed as a farmhand walking into a gray morning. He was already dismounting, already walking towards the river path, already looking directly at her. Miriam stood completely still, her firewood axe in hand and her bare feet in the river mud. She observed the crown prince of Aldera walking down the village path towards her and thought, with remarkable calmness, that this was either real or she had finally lost her mind due to hunger. He halted in front of her. He regarded her, the axe, music, the dress, the bare feet, the mud. Then Daniel, crown prince and now acting sovereign of Aldera, bowed his head to her. Behind him, the entire royal procession witnessed their prince bow to a girl holding a firewood axe. In the village, Mama Rosa sat down directly on the ground. Old Thomas wept quietly into his hands. I told you I would return. I did not have faith in you. I understand. Music, join me, Miriam. The palace requires someone with your compassion. Miriam gazed at his hand. Then she surveyed the village, observing the open mouths and wide eyes, Mama Rosa on the ground, old Thomas's joyful tears, and the children who had once mocked her dress now standing in shocked music, silence. She glanced at her hut, her mat, her pot, and her modest life that had faithfully supported her through years of scarcity. She extended her hand and grasped Daniel's. Then she turned back. One moment, she said. She approached old Thomas, taking his hand in both of hers. Gather what you need. You will accompany us. You will spend your remaining years in comfort. I will ensure it. I will personally see to it. Old Thomas was speechless. He nodded. She then turned to Mama Rosa, still on the ground. Mama Rosa looked up at her, her expression that of a woman who has seen every belief she held about the world shatter in a single afternoon. Miriam, there is nothing to clarify and nothing to pardon. Thank you. Mama Rosa's lips quivered. She squeezed Miriam's hand and said nothing, for there were no words sufficient to express her feelings. Miriam turned back to Daniel, still clutching her firewood axe. Daniel's advisor, riding just behind, cleared his throat in a significant manner. Daniel glanced at the axe, music, then at Miriam. He then stated simply, "She retains the axe." The procession opened up. Miriam walked through the center of it, barefoot, music in her faded dress, firewood axe in hand, with her head held higher than any crown could elevate it. 3 months later, in the throne room of Aldera, Miriam stood next to Daniel as a crown was placed upon her head. The same head that had bent over music a wounded stranger in a bush. The same hands that had cleansed his wound with river water and herbs. The same heart that had given its last portion music without being asked. She was now queen. Not because she had sought it, nor because she had performed or competed. Miriam was not defined by music or schemes. She simply, consistently, and wholly embraced her true self. That evening, she gazed out from the palace window at the kingdom's lights. Daniel approached and stood next to her. "What occupies your thoughts?" he inquired. "I am reflecting on my mother," she replied. "She often told me, 'Miriam, your kind heart will lead you to places beyond your imagination.'" She hesitated. "I once believed she was merely a mother." Daniel grasped her hand. In that moment, she was embodying a prophet. Miriam beamed. Then, softly addressing the night sky, the stars, and the grave located 3 days east in a small village where a woman was interred, a woman who bestowed upon her daughter nothing but a good heart and unwavering faith, she said, "I see it. I see where my good heart, Clear's throat, has led me. The ultimate truth." Miriam did not rescue that man because she recognized him as a prince. She saved him because he was a fellow human in need. She did not offer her blanket with the expectation of receiving a palace in return. She gave it because the night was frigid and he was trembling. She did not endure the village's challenges with grace because she made these choices in isolation. He must depart now. She persevered because her integrity was not contingent upon their validation. However, this is the truth. This narrative is not mine to tell. Your good heart is not a flaw. Your compassion is not foolishness. Your steadfastness during times of scarcity is music, not in vain. Every act of kindness sown in darkness reaches for a light that remains unseen. Assist others not based on their identity. Assist them based on your own. That is the only legacy that holds value. That is the only crown that deserves to be worn.